Hey guys, we're looking at the great tune Billies Bounce by Charlie Parker, and we're going to learn how to play the head. We are going to learn a bit about the bebop scale, some voicings that pianists use in bebop styles, how to swing in bebop. We do the quavers or the eighth notes, they're called quavers or eighth notes. We play them in a slightly different way in this kind of a style, and also just a whole bunch of other stuff we'll learn along the way, I'm sure. All right, so why don't we get into it? Here's the tune, and then I'm going to break it down slowly, and then we're going to talk about some improv things that we can do along the way. Should I bring the bass player into it just yet? No, I won't. I'll just play some just solo piano. All right, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, there's the tune. Bit of improv kind of stuff. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, there's a few little ideas there, but let's get stuck into it. So how do we play this tune? Let's break it down nice and slow. Then we'll talk about the bebop scale. We'll talk about a few other scales as well. Some voicings and, of course, swinging in the style of bebop. All right, so here's the tune. It's a simple blues. Here is the chart for it. Now, I'll put a link right at the top of the description for you guys as to where you can find that online. I just searched it and found it. So you could probably just Google search it for yourself if you wanted as well. So here's the first line here. It is a B natural. There should really, we're in the key of F here, so it really should be a B flat in the key signature, but it doesn't have that here anyway. So in the original real book, it actually has kind of like some handwritten stuff on it sometimes. Anyway, so here we go. So we're going C. My chord is a little bit slow, I do apologise. So that's the kind of the start, right? So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's the second line. All right, we go to the next line. Let me see if I can bring up the notes for you. Oops. I usually play this at speed. So it's almost in muscle memory for me, this one. All right, so that's the tune, all right? So you can fast forward, rewind that as much as you like. Of course, if you can read, you can probably skip all of that and just go straight to that and go for it, all right? So that's Billies Bounce, all right? So let's just break it down a little bit in chords and things that you could do here whilst we're looking at that. Billies Bounce is great too for playing two hands. It kind of, lends itself really kind of well to doing that, or even playing unison with another instrument or something like that as well. I kind of enjoy doing that. If saxophone has got the head, sometimes it's nice to kind of play along with it, as opposed to just playing some chords or something like that in the background. You might actually want to play the head. Anyway, it is worth learning the head of this particular tune. Often in gigs, we'll say, there'll be something like, hey, let's play an F blues or something like that. Well, this is one of those tunes that you can pull out if someone says an F blues, right? Billies Bounce is absolutely perfect for that. It's usually played in the key of F. It obviously can be played in other keys, but that's usually the standard key that you'd get asked to play that in a gig or something like that. All right, so let's get into it. So of course you can download it. Let's have a look at the first line. Now, a couple of things that often bebop players will do is to save time, they'll play some, like if you're playing solo piano anyway, you might play 1 and 7, for example. All right, so it says minor 7th, but it's an F chord, it's an F7, right? Without the A. Okay, so chordy turns into an F minor 7th as an interval, right? So sometimes that, and then go to a 1-3 or 1-10 if your hand's big enough. If my hand was bigger, I would do 1-10, right? So, but anyway, I do a lot of 1-7, and also I kind of stick with a lot of 1-7 when I'm playing in this style, solo piano bebop, right? So I've got a little bit of bass, I've got a little bit of harmony, and then my other hand can kind of take care of some of that harmony. Anyway, you notice that kind of, I started with an A, right? So I'm actually playing the full chord of F7 just by picking a melody note. That kind of works there, right? Now, if you were doing a 10th, you know, you might want to start with the E flat. Now, my hands aren't really big enough to kind of comfortably do that, particularly at speed anyway. So I stay away from the 1-3 a bit, because if I'm going to do 1-3, I don't really want to play it down here. I'll play it here, and I may as well play an E flat as well if I'm going to be playing 1-3. Does that make sense? You know, sometimes I'll just leave out the F, you know, just play the F down the bottom and then come up and play the other notes as well. All right, so 1-7 is really useful, 1-7 to 1-10, because watch this, you know, if I went to 1-3, you can see how these two notes were really close to one another, right? So you could go, you could do something like that. All right, does that kind of make sense? Yeah, that's how you can kind of start the tune there. Now, so that is really what would we base a chord, something like that, a two-handed chord. But we're literally just doing that. All right. Now, there's another good way to do it is 7, 3, and 13. So this is called, in my when I teach this, I call this a B voicing, and I call the A voicing the one that starts on the third. So if I was starting on A, all right, and playing something like that, 3, 7, and here's 9, I'll put the F down there so Cordy knows it's an F9. All right, there it is there. All right, so I would call that a voicing, and this one the B voicing. Now watch this. I'll go from the what voicing we have? The B voicing, right? And then we'll go to the B flat chord, and I'll go to the other voicing, right? So this is the A voicing, this is the B voicing when I change back to the A voicing. All right, here comes the C chord. You could play like that. That's a sharp 9 there, so that should really be a D. Thought of as a D sharp. I'm playing C, right? C7 sharp 9. Yep. Okay. You know, and then coming back down. Or you could just play, you know, C9, F, B flat 9, something like that. All right, that's when we go on to the next part, right? So you've got options. 1-7 is really good, going to 1-10, or playing 7-3 and then something else. It doesn't have to be the 13, right? It could be the 5, it could be the sharp 5, it could be a whole bunch of other stuff, and then the B voicing, which is 3, 7, and then something else. All right, so they work beautifully. Just 3 notes. All right, so all right, so there's some of the chords there. Let me just run through some of the chords for you as well. So we've got the B flat, the F7, we've already done that, so that's okay. The A minor 7, you could, I played that time. That's kind of my go-to for A minor 7 quite often. Now the thing is with bebop, there's not a lot of thinking that you can do sometimes, right? My brain doesn't work that fast, so there's a lot of things that just happen. I wish I could think a little bit quicker, but I don't, you know. So there's a lot of pre-practice that goes into any kind of fast playing because your fingers just kind of got to do it, you know. So there's an A minor 9 going to, if you just change the G and go to the F sharp, G to the F sharp, then you've got a D13 straight away, all right? A D13 or a D7, right? So you can go, you could chuck in the sharp 9 if you wanted to. You could do that. All right, when I add in the bass note, the program knows what chords it is. G minor 7, it's actually the same thing as what we did before from the A minor, and then you could drop it to the C13 like that. So it's literally the same thing as that, right? F, there's D7 sharp 9, G13. It's for the turnaround. If you look at the next line, you'll see the turnaround going to the G minor. Well, I played a G7 there, G13. But yeah, G minor to that, which we've already kind of practiced as well, all right, in those chords. Okay, so there's some chords, there's some that you could work with. You can do that for G minor to C, whatever you would like to do, all right. Make sure you practice all of them though, that's a really important thing to do. One thing that's worth noting, and I'll just get rid of these other things off the screen there. All right, one thing that's worth noting is that with swing, with bebop, and I think more modern jazz just in general anyway, is that we're starting to swing less long, short, long, short, long, short in terms of the quavers or the eighth notes, like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, right? So there's a note where I've held a little bit longer than a shorter note, right? And that's kind of how we've done swing for a long time. And a lot of people still play swing like that. There's a whole bunch of debates on that, I'm sure. Now, I personally like it when the swing is a little straighter. So like, check this out. So here's long, short, long, short. Now I'm going to play the notes straight, as in the rhythm, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, but I'll accent the ands, and it will kind of feel like we're swinging. It kind of feels like we're swinging, but we're not. As in like it's not long, short, right? The notes are feeling like that, and all I did was accent that. Now that's really, really useful when you're playing fast, and that's why the bebop players started to straighten out the quavers. So, all right, so they're all those quavers there, all those eighth notes were straight but with some accents. I mean, some of them may have had a tiniest little bit of long, short going on there. The perfect amount of swing is up for debate. I have heard some people kind of talk about a ratio of 5, 3 to 2, so that's a little bit straighter than, say, a ratio of 2 to 1, okay? So, and of course, if you go all the way back to ragtime, we're talking about a ratio when it was long to short of 3 to 1, okay? So it's up to you kind of how you find the perfect swing for you. And I actually, when I'm playing a lot, particularly, not if I'm playing something fast, the quavers are pretty straight. But I'll find that if I'm playing a slower swing tune, I'll actually kind of move in between maybe 5, the 3 and the 2, the ratio of 3 to 2, 3 being the long and 2 being the slightly shorter note, and also fairly close to being straight. And it's a feel thing. Honestly, it's a feel thing. But that's a big tip for you. When you're playing fast, you don't want to be going. You got to. All right, you've got to really kind of straighten out those quavers Do you make it perfectly straight? Well, maybe, or maybe not. It's up to you, right? So for your style, okay. Now, of course, it's very different still to a style where all of the quavers, are straight. Like when Miles Davis and the other guys were starting to mix pop and rock and jazz together. The funkier kind of jazz. We are talking about straight quavers now, and then but some of that you don't really hear unless you've got the groove of the drums going on as well. All right, so anyway, so that's some idea there. Okay, so the bebop scale, let's get into that. Let's have a look at that. The bebop scale is most often thought of as just one extra note being added to the chord. So there's a couple of different bebop scales. So Barry Harris talks a lot about the diminished sixth scale, and that's where you add the A flat or the G sharp to C major scale, right? So whatever that would be, if I was playing F major scale, I'd add in the D flat, right? That's the diminished sixth or the minor sixth note. Okay, so that's when you're playing a major chord, and that works really, really well, particularly with a sixth chord, right? So, and it means that the chord tones get played on the beat. So if you're doing 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and it's sort of that's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. All right, so you end up with those being played on the beats. Now, we're not playing many major chords. In fact, I don't think we're playing any major chords at all with Billies Bounce. If you just have a quick look at the chart, you'll see this. We've got a dominant chord, F7, B flat 7, a dominant chord. We've got a B diminished chord, an F7, an F7, a B flat 7, right? So we've got a lot of dominant chords, a couple of minor chords, and one diminished chord in there. So, because of all of that, the best scale to know for this particular one is to know the dominant bebop scale, which has it's the Mixolydian, I should say. It's the Mixolydian bebop scale. So the Mixolydian has the B flat in it. Okay, so if I was doing C Mixolydian, goes with the C7 chord, right? Now that is fine to play with all of this, So you're playing the F chord, right? That's fine to use, right? But have a listen to it when I add in the major 7 as well. So you play all the same notes, the Mixolydian notes, but you add in the major 7 as well. So the E flat, the E, and the F. So here's the one without the. Just have a listen to the groove of it when I add in the E. All right, that's cool. I'll do it again, right? It's just got that little nice leading note there. So the bebop scales, I guess you could kind of take the idea of, can I get the chord tones happening on the beat? All right? And if so, what is the note that I need to add to make my 7-note scale, one of my 7-note scales? How do I add just one note and kind of get something cool and different going on there, right? So 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and. All right, that's pretty cool, isn't it? That you can kind of chuck that in there. Another great scale that I think works really well in here is the half whole or the diminished blues scale. So that is where you go, and there's only 3 of them. It's where you go a semitone and then a tone, or a half step and then a whole step, right? Depending on where you live and what you want to call it. Right? So a half step, a whole step, a half step, a whole step, a half step, etc. Right? So that's the C one. The F one is another one that's worth knowing. And these are the fingers that you would use for that. And the G one's worth knowing as well. These are the fingers that I use to play the G one. All right, so I kind of like doing that. You know, you got that. All right, there was a little bit of the C one there. You know, just doing the C. Okay, so there's a couple of ideas there that kind of help you, but those passing notes are really, really going to help you in bebop. It just kind of gives extra kind of cool things happening. All right, kind of gives you a few extra kind of interesting things to do. All right, let's put on some bass. Let's see if we can get some bass going on here. All right, let's bring that back. All right, that's enough there to get a bit of an idea with that. All right, guys, hopefully that's really helpful for you. So if you've got any questions, leave it below and I'll see what I can do. But yeah, so have a go at that dominant bebop scale. There it is there. Have a go at some of those voicings, the 1/7s and the B voicing and the A voicing. And try and straighten out those quavers. Have fun with Billies Bounce, guys, and I'll see you around real soon. Bye.